Aujourd'hui, je vais parler de what I find to be an interesting question as to what type of jobs most people should choose, right? Essentially trading passion for money or vice versa. And how does that gel with the idea of getting to financial independence and hopefully retiring early, right? Hey, Zampak here. So another day not working for the man. Boy, does it feel good. So now that I'm over the whole working thing, I just spend my time contemplating on the philosophical questions like this one I saw in the infamous Facebook fire group, and that is, would you rather work a job you hate for more money or a job you love for less money, right? Kind of sounds like one of those 1-2 multiple choice questions, doesn't it? But to me, that's really besides the point, right? To me, this question is more about how much passion each of us is willing to trade for money. Now, everyone's different, obviously, so our passions differ too, but still, somehow in this incredibly rich country of ours, I'm pretty sure there's this pervasive idea that jobs that pay more seem almost always worth in terms of its integrity and thus worthy of hate, right? So I'd like to look at the extremes and see if we can find some middle ground. So point number one, first of all, whenever people say, oh, make more money at a job that one would hate, right? I imagine they're thinking about things like working at companies that make weapons or alcohol or tobacco, or maybe defending giant corporations in court as lawyers, or worse yet, those sneaky Wall Street types, right? That seems to be rolling in the dough and always acting like douches in the news. Now, I'm not judging who goes into these professions, right? But most investment bankers flame out after less than a decade due to the high level of competition and stress and move on to other things, right? So I think it's fair to say that this one is not one that inspires a lot of love, right? The obvious advantage to this type of grouping is the high pay, right? The question here is whether the pay is worth the sacrifice. Since most people I know would say that money is not worth selling your soul or whatever, I'd like to be contrarian here, right? I'd say, well, having a high-pressure job mainly for the money means, or one that you don't have passion for, actually does have some secondary purposes of training up at least your level of resilience. After all, if you can do work for just a few years, that'll have a large ramification financially down the line. I'm absolutely positive that'll also make you much more likely to persevere in any sorts of more difficult situations later on in life. Also, right, generally making good money can simply be a means to an end, right? I mean, I worked for a giant company for a decade and now no longer have to work for anyone else. Is it worth it, right? Even assuming that I hated the job, which is not true, I think that calculation can be very personal. Right? Point number two, on the flip side, oh man, making less money but doing something you love sounds like a great plan, right? I mean, technically, ideally, this is what I'm doing, okay, right now, because my social media job on YouTube makes absolutely $0, and yet I continue to do it. Why? Because I enjoy it. It's fun to write something consistently after so many years of not doing so, right? Even if my writing still needs work, I still, like, this is fun for me, right? Anyway, that's a tangent. Let's assume I did need a job to live, like, you know, the vast majority, 99% of the people. Think about what jobs people usually think of that's mentally satisfying but doesn't pay well, right? Maybe working at a pet shop, if you love animals, or something creative like being like acting or being a musician, right? If those are things that you care about. I like to use actors as the primary examples here because most actors make so little that they actually need another secondary job just to keep their financial head above water, right? So who can say no to people chasing their dreams, right? I can, right? Because unlike, you know, big name actors, the vast majority of the creative types who chase their dreams end up never making it. And that's honestly totally fine if said actors or creative types comes from a background of financial privilege, right? AKA the bank of mom and dad. So if you're from an upper middle class background and want to bet a few decades on creative endeavors that have an abysmally low rate of success, go for it, right? I have no problem with that. But if I'm talking to someone who's like a raised immigrant or someone who is the first in their family to go to college, the equation is totally different, right? Look, I'm not saying that poor people shouldn't chase their dreams, just that if you really want to follow passion over reality only, right, I hope you're mentally prepared for the high likelihood of failure and having some sort of backup plan, right? And in this sense, I don't even mean backup plan for yourself, but a backup plan overall for your family unit, right? I know it sucks, but in poor communities of any size, simply, you know, these communities are simply afforded less options. That's just the world, right? I can't change that. So point number three, is there such a thing as a middle ground between trading dollar for a hated, you know, kind of field versus barely making it, doing something fun? Well, again, I gotta look at my own personal example, right? I know it's anecdotal, but still I think it's relevant. I work primarily in advertising, right? A field where the barrier to entry is not well known to be high. And while I'm certainly not particularly passionate about it, I didn't hate it either, okay? Now I'm using this as an example because, like, how about you just work at a job that you're okay with? Pick that type of field. All right, but what about the money aspect, one might ask? But here's where I think we tend to forget some nuance in how we talk about professions, right? A regular field like advertising, rather than say in the creative arts, has a much higher average ceiling. Average ceiling, okay? I mean, all I did was make it to middle management and somehow I made enough money to retire early. Now, obviously, my secret is that I ended up at one of the FANG companies, right? That helps a ton. But still, I got there simply by changing jobs every few years and a bit of luck. My point is, at no point could I have said, I hate my job. But likely I didn't love my job either. I don't really think people with common 9-to-5 gigs really love their jobs, right? Not a good percentage of it. And that's okay. For most people, making a living and being able to save on that regular job, that's the whole plan, right? There's enough variety of companies in most of these fields and industries that you shouldn't be stuck in a place that you actually hate, as long as you're willing to move around a bit. And moving jobs is really the only way to get real raises for most of us in this middle group. So I would say just go on that path. Right. Now, in conclusion, I don't think choosing a job for money is bad, but it really depends on a realistic trade-off, right? Personal example, when I left my corporate gig, I thought to myself, would I stay for $1 million a year? And my answer was actually no, I don't need more money. So think about how big a number or how small a time frame it would need for you to choose to make that same type of decision if you're at a job that you really don't like, right? On the other hand, do you want to chase passion with a low chance of success? I think that really depends on how much of a gambler you are at heart, okay? Life isn't quite so black and white, and the vast majority of fields aren't so bad that they are to be hated and do have enough room to get you to make some real money, no matter what field you're in, at least in the USA, because that's the only world that I know, right? So why not just do what I did and get some life experience along the way with the money, right? Maybe at a gig that's not quite your passion, but you can still find some joy in. After all, one can simply chase their passion after reaching the fire state. Like me. I mean, it's a good thing I'm impervious to lifestyle creep or wanting more social media influence, or I'd be sad about my minuscule following, right? But even that type of resilience is an aspect of my personality that I had to train, all right, through my working life. So yeah, what kind of jobs do you guys have and what do you want it to be, right? Comment, subscribe, like, and all that social media nonsense. Or whatever. Cheers. I'll approach it.